How do you really get your head around a huge, abstract idea? Like, what even is law? Well, sometimes the best way is to zoom in on one single, difficult case. In this explainer, we're going to see what happens when one person's ordeal puts an entire legal system and the very definition of law itself on trial. We're going to start with these really powerful words from the man at the center of our story, Dr. Chen Jingyuan. He wrote this from a prison cell, and it just immediately sets the stakes. This isn't some dry academic debate. We're talking about a real person, a real life, and a deeply held belief in truth, even when things look their darkest. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get into the actual facts of the case. Then, we'll look at it through two totally different philosophies of law. And we'll wrap up by putting the whole idea of law itself under the microscope. Okay, let's dive right in. Section 1. First things first, we need to establish the facts. What actually happened here? Things moved fast, really fast. Dr. Chen, who's a research scientist with a PhD, was arrested in September 2022, and by the next July, he was in prison. But here's a detail that's absolutely critical. His trial wasn't open to the public. And what was he actually charged with? This is so central to the entire story. The charge was picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Now, this is a notoriously broad and vague charge. It's often called a pocket crime, a charge so flexible you can pretty much pull it out of your pocket to cover almost anything. And the sentence for this, 1 year and 8 months in prison. So you've got to be asking, what exactly did he do to deserve that? Well, according to the official case files, it was for forwarding posts online. And get this, some of these posts were from official sources like the U.S. Embassy's social media. Okay. So let's just process that. A scholar is in prison for sharing social media posts, convicted under a super vague law. This whole situation forces us to ask a really fundamental question. If a process follows all the rules, but the result just feels wrong, is it still law? This brings us to our first major perspective. So let's put on our legal philosopher hats for a second and look at this through the eyes of John Austin. His command theory of law is, well, it's brutally straightforward. He basically says, forget about whether a law is good or bad, moral or immoral. A law is just three things: a command from the people in charge with a punishment if you don't follow it. That's it. And here's where things get really uncomfortable. If you apply Austin's simple model to Dr. Chen's case, well, it fits perfectly. You've got the command from the state, you've got the sanction, prison, and it was carried out. From this cold, purely logical perspective, what we call the letter of the law, the process was, technically, lawful. A bad law, maybe, but a law nonetheless. But I mean, does that sit right with you? Can that really be the whole story? Of course not. And this is where we pivot to a completely different way of seeing things. This view argues that law has to be more than just a set of rules. It has to have a moral core. This is the spirit of the law. So this is the question that gets to the heart of it. If a process follows all the formal steps, takes all the boxes, but the end result strikes us as fundamentally unfair, have we actually witnessed justice, or did we just watch a procedure play out? To dig into this, we'll turn to another philosopher, Ronald Dworkin. He argued passionately against that simple rules are rules idea. For Dworkin, law is all about integrity. It's a whole web of moral principles. Justice, fairness, basic human dignity. He had this great image of a judge needing to be like Hercules, using almost superhuman strength to find the single best moral interpretation of the law that makes the whole system just and coherent. And this chart, wow, it just lays the whole problem out perfectly. This is what Dworkin would call a complete collapse of integrity. On the left, you've got these bedrock legal principles that any fair system should have. On the right, you see what actually happened to Dr. Chen. The idea of clear rules, violated by that vague charge. The presumption of innocence, totally flipped on its head. Freedom of speech, a fair trial, just disregarded. This isn't a small gap. It's a massive rupture between what the law claims to be and what it actually did. So, this massive conflict between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law forces us to zoom out and ask an even bigger question. What is a legal system even for? It's time to put the idea of law itself on trial. Let's think of this as a system health check, using the ideas of another scholar, Lon Fuller. He argued that for any system of rules to even deserve the name law, it needs to have an inner morality, things like clarity, consistency, and fairness. Well, in Dr. Chen's case, this health check shows the system is flatlining. The law wasn't clear at all, it was contradictory. I mean, think about this. The court basically said he was guilty because he's a smart guy, but then they silenced him when he tried to use that intellect to defend himself. And maybe most damning, the court's actions just didn't line up with their own written rules. So at the end of the day, what is the purpose of all this? You've really got two completely opposing answers here. Is law a form of social engineering, a tool to build a better, more balanced society? Or is it something much darker? Simply a tool of control, an instrument the ruling class uses to keep power and shut down dissent. When you look at what happened to Dr. Chen, which of those two descriptions feels more accurate? And this leaves us with one last, really challenging question that ties everything together. If a process looks like law, it has the right documents, the official stamps, all the proper procedures, but its fundamental purpose isn't justice, it's control, can we still call it law? The case of Dr. Chen doesn't give us an easy answer, but it definitely forces us all to confront what we believe the answer should be.